Welcome to episode 12 of Ed's Not Dead. Boys, we are back.
So excited. What a break. What a break that was.
It wasn't really a break.
Ah, that's true. That was last time.
All right, I am Robby Dodd. I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Casey Siddons.
Chester Finn here.
And
Junior.
Listeners, you'll find out more about Chester Finn later in the show. And Mr. Peter Crable, of course.
Hello there.
All right, you can find me at RW Dodd, Mr. Siddons at CH Siddons, and Mr. Crable at Peter Crable on Twitter. And, of course, our show Twitter is at Ed's Not Dead PC. Fellas, how are you?
I'm great. Do you know how the average number of Twitter users that do not have, or that the average number of Twitter users that have an actual photo? What's the percentage?
65.
I'm not guessing. Go ahead.
46%.
That's lame.
That's pretty low.
Yeah.
It's all those Russian bots.
It's all those bots. Fake news.
All right, so today, this will be old news, folks, by the time you hear this episode, but today will go down in history as the Devin Nunes Memo Day.
Release the memo. Hashtag release the memo.
Hashtag release the memo.
Hashtag nothing burger.
Hashtag absolutely garbage.
Hashtag written by my age. Hashtag it was a stupid memo.
Hashtag dud. All right, we have a big show today. We are going to get into Chester Finn's recent article. Chester Finn is Fordham Institute?
Yeah, the Thomas B. Fordham Institute.
And the Hoover...
Yeah, Stanford's Hoover...
The vacuum cleaner.
Institute or institution.
Institution. The Hoover Institution.
That sounds definitely correct.
Okay. All right. Chester Finn has wrote a very. That's my problem. I don't know facts. I only know concepts. He wrote a compelling piece on the decay of truth, because we educators have been teaching thinking skills and not facts over the last 30 years. So we're going to get into that. I know Mr. Siddons has lots to say about Mr. Finn.
I do.
All right. And then we also have a new installment of Education Excellence with an awesome guest. Gillian Williams from the Rensselaerville Institute will be with us and Turnaround Schools, and she is going to school us on all things turnaround.
Looking forward to it.
And then I think at the end of the show, we have a top 10 controversial educational issues.
We do. Casey's going to guess.
Yeah.
We're going to see who can guess first.
Yeah, we're gonna fire it off and see who gets first.
We've got your millennial trophy sitting right here in case you lose again.
Great.
All right, boys, what have you been up to real quick? Super Bowl weekend, picks for the game, so everybody can hear.
Match. So excited for the match.
I'd like to point out that I did pick the winners. And by the time this comes out, I will have picked the winner of the Super Bowl as well.
And who do you think's going to win the match?
For better or worse, it's going to be Tom Brady.
Absolutely, Tom Brady's going to win.
Yeah, he wears Uggs, man.
He's going to win.
Yeah, I agree.
In the third quarter, end of the third quarter. What's the score?
It's the third period, actually.
Whatever. What's the score? What's the score going to be?
27-24.
Wow,
that's a good one.
Wow,
I like that.
It's a really good one, isn't it?
Yeah. Is Nick Foles going to have a bad game for the Eagles?
No, he'll play well.
You think he'll play well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Bill Belichick will walk away with his 6th Super Bowl.
Of rings.
In full sweatpants.
It's so painful.
Full sweatpants outfit, and he's going to grow a 6th finger.
Yeah.
And get it sewed on.
We love our listeners in Philadelphia and in the Boston area, but I really can't root for either team. It's a
tough one for.
I think most of the country can't root for either of these teams, though. So, I mean, can you?
Yeah, I think the Patriots have built up a good
national following.
I think so. Yeah, winning begets fans.
Okay,
unfortunately.
All right. So, other news.
Yeah, we have some exciting news in the Ed's Not Dead family.
What? Get off your phone, Mr. Siddons.
Mr. Robert W. Dodd is now a published guy. He's a published author.
He's a guy that was published.
Yeah, he's a guy that wrote something that got published. So
actually, I only co-wrote it.
You co-wrote it, but that still makes you published, does it not?
Yes, it does.
It's true.
All right. Well, anyway, so via Johns Hopkins for the Center for Social Organization of Schools.
Yeah,
I did. Robby and Doug McIver wrote a piece about Project Success, which I know we've alluded to, and just for anyone out there that doesn't know exactly what that is, Project Success is a program that Robby co-founded, thought of, brought out of his heart.
Yes, all true. All
onto
the
a
above.
school
He
schedule.
was the thought leader for it.
Where secondary students, sixth graders, they have one teacher for 4 classes. So it's kind of an easing of the transition from elementary school to middle school. We have lots of great phrases in the article, semi-departmentalization.
Yeah. I prefer to call it semi-self-contained instruction.
That would be a much better description. But yeah, it talks all about the benefits of it and the results of Robby's doctorate, which prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the benefits of Project Success for student achievement and how it does increase community, increases student achievement. It's a real winner.
Engagement,
yes.
Yeah. But the bottom line was student outcomes, and we are lucky because we have the pioneering Project Success teacher in our midst, Mr. Casey City.
I'm here with Chester. I'm so glad that it's finally getting the press that it's due.
Yeah. Project Success changed you as a teacher, right?
It did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It was very challenging to go from just teaching social studies to teaching 4 different subjects, but you see it in the kids, just the benefits in the students that you have almost immediately.
Yep. And you became an expert in literacy across the content areas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we're all teachers of reading.
Who does guided reading in 6th grade in their classroom? You were doing that.
We had walkthroughs that first year, and when the powers that be saw a social studies teacher doing guided reading, a small group instruction, I think he was quite struck by that.
And a former math teacher, Miss Ginger Berry.
That's right.
Doing guided reading.
That's right.
Yep. And you had killer reading outcomes to show for it.
Yeah, it turned out quite positive results. And I saw a couple of my former students just today, actually.
Yep. Thank you to Douglas MacGyver, Dr. MacGyver, for leading the charge. The blog post on the Center for the Social Organization of Schools is in celebration of 50 years for the center at Johns Hopkins, and the Social Organization of Schools, for those that are not familiar with it, has done an incredible amount of pioneering work in education K to 12, especially though in middle and high schools. They have the talent development program, which really focuses a little bit on what we'll be talking with Gillian Williams about, which is turnaround efforts in schools. The last thing I will say for our listeners out there, if you want more information about Project Success, you can certainly shoot me or Casey a message on Twitter.
I'm going to put it in the show notes, the link.
Right.
Yeah, but aside from the Hopkins website, show notes.
Show notes. I know you all read them.
We're going to tweet about it incessantly.
Oh, easily.
Okay, to prime you guys for the quiz show later, who knows what success stands for?
Oh.
Unified.
Student
You got the
unified curriculum.
Oh.
Content.
Extra student
specials. Well, I got it wrong the last time I said it too.
Okay, you are you helped design the program.
Yeah, but I didn't memorize the acronym. Student Unified.
Student Unified.
Okay.
Curriculum.
Connecting. Combining English, science, and social studies.
Very good.
Yes.
Yep.
good.
Yep. And we got to give a shout out to Mama Cass.
Kelly Phillips,
who was a pioneer of Project Success and responsible largely for the design of it. So thank you, Kelly.
We should interview her.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, so she can share with our audience about how much PTSD she has from working with me.
And sharing an office with me.
That's right. Yeah, Cravel. That was worse. All right, let's jump into our first segment. You ready? Thank you, Mr. Craves, by the way.
Yes. Congratulations.
All right.
Before we do that, I would like to say that when you read the blog and the article, I shouldn't say it's a blog, the published article, I think it lends itself to something that we talk about a lot, which is that change from within is possible, and you just have to think outside the box and try to do something different and allow things to happen that may be out of the norm, but ultimately it's in the benefit of kids.
Yep. And I think
said.
and I think all three of us would subscribe to the fact, based on things like Project Success, that change from within is probably the best way to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
change from-
Teacher-driven change.
Absolutely. Yep. Teacher, principal driven change. I had to throw principal in.
I know you did.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Teacher, principal.
Teacher, principal change.
Assistant principals do.
Assistant principal. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Finn
Chester.
does not think that thinking skills have led to the honoring of truth in our society. Mm-hmm. And I said to you guys when we talked about this article that, this goes all the way back to the way tests are written, whether we're trying to assess kids' thinking skills or do they need to know the date that Martin Luther came out with his, what was it? I don't even know.
It was a piece of paper.
It was a piece of paper
Yeah.
about the Reformation.
Nailed it on a door.
Okay.
I've seen that door, by the way.
Have you?
Yeah.
Ah.
Anyway, yes.
So you get what I mean.
Yes.
So he's written this piece, which is a little bit all over the place. It's semi-political. He takes shots at the current administration and the way that they have decayed truth, but he really tries to hold our modern public education system accountable for the decay of truth, and that begins with thinking skills.
And just real quick, the title of the article, because it is rather provocative, is "Emphasis on Thinking Skills Over Facts in Schools Contributes to Truth Decay." So.
And when I actually found the article on the twits, I was actually doing research on dental care, and I actually got lost because I thought it said tooth decay. So I was like, oh, I'm excited because I thought I had a cavity recently, but it's actually truth decay. But it will lend itself to this show very nicely.
All right, so let me read you a quote.
Read me the quote.
The problem there is that once thinking gets detached from knowledge, the sky becomes the limit as to what one might think and whether it has any foundation in reality. 3 decades back, Diane Ravitch and I wrote in What Do Our 17-Year-Olds Know that the power of the facts versus concepts dichotomy has grown so great within the social studies field. You social studies teachers, you guys are the decayers of truth.
Back off. We're decayers.
That some professionals now harbor an instinctive distrust of facts per se.
That was 30 years ago.
I know. Well, it's even worse now.
So do you agree that people are focused too much on facts or too much on thinking skills? What's the
It's the common
diagnosis? The communist core.
I think it's largely ridiculous. I don't agree. I mean, I think again.
No, you agree. There's parts of it.
Okay.
So take away some of the ridiculous, and we'll get into some of the ridiculous things he says.
His article's terrible.
Right. The article is not good.
Okay.
But you've said some stuff about the facts versus ideas, and that there is some sort of balance between the two. Give your great analogy.
Well, I mean, I just, because I'm the geezer on the show, I liken it to the whole language versus phonics movement. Do kids learn to read one letter at a time, or do they learn to read words and sentences at a time?
And can you believe we don't teach cursive anymore?
Yeah, I know. I talk
ridiculous.
Cursive. So, I mean, I think there's a happy medium. I don't think any of the three of us in our teaching careers or as educational leaders would subscribe to that classroom should be devoid of facts. But I think that we also would subscribe to the notion that we have to teach kids how to think about facts, how to use facts to reason, how to use facts to analyze things. So I think there's a place for both.
There is a place. There has to be facts. And I remember going through my 10th grade, maybe it was 9th grade, modern world-ish history class, and it was just definitions and facts and dates, and it was not very exciting at all. It was quite boring, and I think it was a missed opportunity because although obviously the dates, the facts, whatnot, the battles, they're important, but they're not being applied in any way. If you're not applying them, it's useless. They're not. I shouldn't say they're useless, but there is some nuance to it.
Do you teach geography?
I took a geography class in middle school. I loved it.
See, I don't hate geography.
I don't hate it either.
Geography has disappeared largely.
It has, but well, as a class, it has, but it's embedded.
It's embedded.
It's embedded
in the social studies
when was
curriculum.
the last time you taught geography or social studies? When was that? When? Do you have a year for that?
You tell you tell me.
Tell me about what the social studies curriculum prescribes in terms of geography and
I
the
don't
impact
know.
of cultural geography.
You were a social studies department leader. You tell me.
I will tell you, it's embedded in each curriculum.
Okay. Do the kids have to learn all the states and the capitals?
Why do they need to know that? That's ridiculous.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
cares?
So they don't learn geography.
That's not geography. Learning the states is not geography.
Is it geography, Mr. Krabs? You were a social studies teacher too.
It's like political geography.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So I guess the answer is yes. You
So,
answer your own question.
so the fact that we don't teach the 50 states is a problem.
I just use it as an example.
So here's okay. Here's the issue. Tell
me the issue.
especially with this article, where this
I know.
article runs
Gesture.
particularly afoul with me is that
I emailed him at AOL, and we're hoping to get him on the show.
all the examples that he gives are all in relation to what I would call soft sciences, social sciences. There's not a single issue that he raises here where we're talking about math facts. Those are facts. There's not anything where he's talking about physics, scientific facts. They are literally immutable. So he's taking as his basic interpretation things which are interpretations. So an example that he gives that he points to as somehow ridiculous is the fact that we're now squeamish saying that Columbus discovered America, and that this, in and of itself, points to our inability to take fact from one point of view. And that's where my real issue is, where it's like, okay, yes, if you were living in Portugal or Genoa or wherever Columbus was coming from, yeah, Columbus did discover it for you. But we need to take into account all these other perspectives, all these other ideas, because it's not a fact. There's a difference between a math and a science fact and a social fact.
Right.
And they're totally different. And I think his point is that in America, we've lost social facts. And anybody want to take a guess what color Chester E. Finn Jr. is?
I thought his last name was Finn, and he would be white.
Ethan. He's a middle initial.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
He would be...
Ethan the Third.
Yes. He would be an older white male.
Yep.
Who, in my opinion, is looking at what America used to be.
Right.
And
before he had all these other opinions, and before we had all these other interpretations, you could just say Columbus discovered America, and wasn't that a simpler time when we didn't have to argue about facts? When America was great.
I just can't believe that the distinguished senior fellow the Columbus example is just lazy. It's just
ridiculous.
But it reaches a broad swath of people who think that calling it Indigenous Peoples Day is a stain on America. And that's what it is.
I don't think any of us here are saying we need to call it that or get Columbus Day or whatever, but we're just saying, there's other points of view, and it's probably a little bit important to recognize those.
And you know what his problem is? Mr. Finn's problem is that he didn't have good education and thinking skills, because his thinking in this article is incredibly lazy.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
It is all over the place.
But I think I think words matter, and the way that he's using them in this particular article, it's trying to fire up his right-wing conservative base to say that, hit all the buzzwords about Columbus Day and the Never Trumpers or whatever. But I think it's important to note that that's kind of what that part of the political party goes to in terms of criticizing public education. They look for those kind of easy black and white issues. It's like, well, they're not talking about facts enough. They're not talking about years and battles and all the great things that America has done. And meanwhile, I don't think that's happening in social studies classrooms.
Question for you. So recently, an Iowa congressman, I believe, put forth a bill, maybe a state senator.
I heard about this.
Yes, where high school students would be required to pass a 100-question, essentially mock citizenship test. So basics of American civics modeled off of what people that are attempting to become citizens have to make, and with the logic being, well, you live here, you should know a little bit about American civics. Thoughts?
I would be okay if they give everybody in Iowa a free ID when they're 18.
What does that have to do with anything?
To let them vote.
You lost me.
It's called,
I don't.
It's called compromise.
What is that?
So should
What do you
they?
mean?
Can you answer a question?
Should
Why?
they?
Why?
Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea for them to take 100
Well,
question
so
mock
He's a
citizenship?
classic progressive educator who will not take a stand.
Because that's facts. That's real life facts, and that's
Yeah, I
fact
mean,
and policy. So I'm just kind of curious.
I vote for yes for that.
They also have the details of that bill would be that they have like 6 or 7 years to do it. So they could take it in 8th grade, they can take it in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th. They can take it as many times as they want. So you know what? If they want to add another test for kids to take, go for it. They're already testing the hell out of them anyway, so do it.
This is a no cussing show. Listen, I don't have a problem with the conceit of Mr. Finn's article. I mean, there is a problem with truth decay to a certain degree in this country right now, in that
Where do most people get their news? Probably
social media.
Facebook,
right.
and it's completely organized for that person's viewing and based on their friends and their connections, and they're not getting it in an objective way at all.
No, and I mean, because you either tune into MSNBC or Fox,
Right.
or CNN,
Or Trump,
Right.
Russia Today,
right, or you go to the different, you go to Breitbart, or you go somewhere like that, right? But
Yep.
I do think there's a conversation to be had about education and curriculum and how teachers teach knowledge and how kids think about knowledge. So I don't disagree with that. I disagree with the laziness of his thinking about the topic.
And here's the other piece that I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about. So when you think about 21st century skills and 21st century learning and kind of some of these other buzzwords as they pertain to education today, it does focus primarily or exclusively on thinking skills with the basic premise that information is available. The job and the skills that you learn today are not the jobs and skills that you're going to learn or need to have 4 years from now when you need a
Absolutely.
job. And so,
or you need those thinking skills when you find that article that's completely fake.
Right. So the kind of premise is like nothing that you're doing now per se, the information might not be that useful, but the things in how you're learning is what is going to be useful. And I do think that this article and generally this point of view is a pushback against that and saying, whoa. Well, maybe there are some things that we should just teach that we should all know. And I would say that maybe the truth in there, as terrible as this article is, and as much as I disagree with him, is that maybe some of that social societal contract, the things that we all know, the things that bind us, the things that we have in common, maybe that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, there's a set of principles, right, that the country's founded on, and I think some people think some of those have been lost. So I get that, but again, Mr. Crable, to your point about perspectives, he only took one perspective here, and we know that we've had curriculum in schools that for too long only taught one perspective on everything from civics to science to English. I mean, there's been that dominant cultural perspective, and we've had discussions about. We had Zaretta Hammond on this show tell us that schools were set up to entirely in the image of that perspective and not to serve the interests of black and brown kids in this country. And he's pretty much saying that that's not how schools should work.
And facts are obviously important, but from a teacher perspective, facts are easier to teach. They're easier to teach.
Ooh, good point, Mr. Sims.
You can just have flashcards. You can have easy quizzes, multiple choice, all that other stuff. It's easy to teach facts.
Do you know this and remember it? No? Then look at it
Correct.
again.
Yep. Then you need to read that definition again and do it again. Read that article again, whatever. The thing that he mentions in
if
there.
they're so easy to teach, though, why can't kids? Well, why did I hear a math teacher the other day said that kids don't know their basic facts?
Because they're pushing them through and they don't know their facts.
But forget that.
He said easier to teach, not easier to learn.
Oh, very good. Thank
good
you.
distinction.
Nice distinction.
The one thing that he does mention in there that I shouldn't say I took issue. I remember reading about it. It's about the tree octopus And there was a what? Click on the link. So
Clicking on that.
why? So the tree octopus thing that he mentions is interesting because the last time that I was in the classroom, one of the ways that we taught English, a topic in English was about media literacy, and we started the lesson with talking about the tree octopus. And there were 6th graders, and about, generally when we would teach it, about 95% of them, they would go through this site. Someone set up a site about a tree octopus. And it's completely false, obviously, but the website is set up so that you can help kids go through and help determine, if this is truth or not. And there's always like 95% of the kids don't think they think it's true.
Right.
And then there's 5% who are like, wait a minute, hold on, very early on. But he uses this particular instance, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like he's cherry picking.
Let me just say, when I was 20 years old and studied abroad in Australia, the Australians messed with all the Americans and told us there were drop bears. That if you walked under the trees, these bears would fall on your head. And there was a not small portion of myself that believed it, and I was 20. Okay.
All right. I'm feeling a little guilty about how we
No.
took Mr. Finn to task.
I am not feeling guilty at all.
Okay.
I'm going to email him. I'm going to send out his email in the show notes.
All right. Good discussion, boys.
You don't care about that.
No, I don't.
Don't feel guilty.
Don't.
Don't get mad at my friend Chester. He's a good man.
All right, folks, don't go away. When we come back, we will have our latest installment of Education Excellence. So don't go away. We'll talk to you in a minute, folks. Boys, we are incredibly lucky to have Gillian Williams from the Rensselaerville Institute on this installment of Education Excellence, produced by Mike Levin-Epstein and Sue Semplis. Gillian started her career as an educator in 1990, working as a bilingual teacher in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan. In 1997, Gillian became the youngest elementary school principal. That would be, she was 27 years old. Yikes.
I'm already behind.
Yes, you are. Of New York City's most beleaguered schools, Public School 63 in the South Bronx. Gillian assumed the presidency of the Rensselaerville Institute in the spring of 2010. Her appointment by the Board of Trustees was grounded in the achieved success of School Turnaround, which she founded and developed at the Rensselaerville Institute. Gillian is a national leader in education and was featured twice on the CBS television program Sunday Morning, which is not as good as Ed's Not Dead, but that's all right, as well as several NPR radio segments. She's appeared in numerous publications, including The New Yorker, The New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, and Education Week. Gillian, we are so psyched to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, so let's jump in. A lot of the work you do with schools in helping schools with their turnaround efforts starts with leadership. What's different about the way you guys work with teacher leaders and administrators in the school turnaround arena?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that when you're working with leaders, the last thing you want to do is give them a script that they have to go on. That's kind of counterintuitive when you're wanting somebody to lead. So for us, it's really about what are the behaviors and characteristics of people who lead turnaround, and then what are the strategies that they use. And when you talk about behaviors and strategies, you allow for people to be idiosyncratic and kind of handle it the way that they see best, which is how leaders are successful.
And you were one of the first to pioneer that term, school turnaround, in 2000. That came almost on the heels of No Child Left Behind, where it's now become a common phrase for us to talk about it with regard to lower performing schools, perhaps. But how do you define school turnaround?
Yeah, well, back when we first started it, we got hammered for people thinking that we were a hostile takeover group. That was the one thing we ran up against. And then Arnie Duncan didn't do us a lot of favors by putting it out there, because then you had a proliferation of folks thinking, "Oh, this is a good way to make some money." Give us more on Arnie Duncan. What did he do? Just clarify. No, no way.
Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I will say that, look, turnaround is something that's gotten bastardized as a term. It's really about, can you raise achievement for kids in a short amount of time in ways that will stick around, that'll be durable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not about putting some cookie cutter program into place and saying, do these things. Here's another compliance checklist. If you just do it, maybe you'll get some results, maybe you won't, and we'll slap the name turnaround on it.
So I guess you've talked a little bit about, not being formulaic. So can you go into a little bit more detail? So what does that mean? I mean, in working with school leaders and letting them be who they are, are there characteristics that you have found lead to successful, I guess, school turnaround, or things that lead to school improvement? What are some of the patterns you've noticed that have emerged?
Yeah, that's really how we started School Turnaround, was that we went out and we took a look at people who'd actually turned around low-performing schools or districts and said, what are the common things that we're seeing in these people? And it's really based on this idea that, there's no mandate, there's no funding stream, there's no policy that's going to make change happen. It's always going to come down to a person. So we ought to look at people. It's a great frustration of mine that to this day I've been yet to find a state ed department that asks about the person who's going to lead turnaround versus the plan and the mandate. So it's none of the strategies and none of the characteristics we look for are rocket science. The number one predictor for us is energy. Does the person have that staying power to keep it work? You guys know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's can you get a second wind at 6, 7 o'clock at night and keep at it?
Yep. So would you, when I read about schools that are low performing, and I've worked in a couple where we had a lot of work to do with outcomes, and there seem to be different kinds of challenges. Lots of times those schools have significant cultural issues or technical issues. When you work with leaders, how do you look at culture, climate, or do you start with the instructional program and instructional leadership? What are your entry points for that work?
Yeah, the entry point for us is, what's the academic achievement of kids? Because that's what schools are signed up to do, is to help kids learn. And I think all of those other things can come into play. Mm-hmm. So if the culture is bad, sure, that's going to contribute to poor academic achievement. If the custodial services aren't cleaning up, the floors, then kids will get sick, and that'll contribute to academic achievement. There are all kinds of things that go into that, but the bottom line is, the outcomes for kids that we're responsible for are, have they learned well? And I think that's where we get confused, and we aim at the things that aren't the long-term goals.
Right. They're important, but they're not the focus.
Sure. Does attendance count? Does culture count? Yeah, mm-hmm. It does. But they're not ends in of themselves.
Got it. Okay.
And I guess a follow-up question. This is going to be kind of an annoying question, but how long does it take? So what's the expectation? Because I'm thinking, you get a really dynamic, energetic principal and maybe a couple leaders in there. Does that change? I know that's the first step, but kind of for those other dominoes to fall, how long does that take, and how do you know when you're there?
Yeah, I think that turnaround itself should take a couple years, 2-3 years tops, and that's the main turnaround. But I think that's where it differs when you define turnaround versus you define making a school excellent. Mm-hmm. So turnaround for us is, can you change the trajectory that a school is on, whether that's reversing decline or it's increasing the speed of achievement, interrupting a flat line, whatever that is, it's a major change in the trajectory, and that should only take a couple years. People don't have the energy to sustain turnaround or the stomach for it, frankly, because it can be pretty disruptive. And then you got to make sure that you've set a school on a path for durable achievement that's going to last. And you got to have other people in the building who can help make that happen. It can't just be, a single. That cult of personality leader, I think, is a fallacy as well.
Yeah.
Even though Robby tried to cultivate a cult of personality.
I did.
Well,
I did. It's all I had. It was
right?
It was my go-to. Come on. Anyway.
Yeah. And what you were talking about durable change. What is that? What does that even? What does that look like? What does it sound like? How does that work with what you do with schools?
Well, I think the two things. One is you gotta be coming at this change for the long haul for kids. So it's not test prep. It's not just raising scores here and now. It's changing the behavior of adults so that change is going to keep coming. Both so that a kid who's in fourth grade now and learns how to read really learns how to read and think and divide and whatever cool stuff they're learning in fourth grade right now. and that keeps going, but it's also that next year's fourth graders are going to learn how to think and read and write. It's that the change in behavior in adults has to be what sticks around, and that's leadership at the building level with the principal and the assistant principal and the teacher leaders, but it's also all the informal leadership that comes with that, which is whether it's all the way to your school aide and your parent liaison and all of that, that are going to make things really shift. And, that's if you want to talk culture, that's the culture of success because everybody's lined up with that. And again, that's where the no cookie cutter plan or program will help you do that. It's got to be based in the way people behave and the strategies they're using.
Right.
All right, so speaking of that durable change, I'm sure when you were a principal, a 27-year-old principal in a really challenging educational environment, and now with the Rensselaerville Institute, I'm sure a lot of your work is with teachers and how to really improve instruction. Do you have to, in turnaround situations, is some of that hardest work in the classroom with teachers? Do you use the evaluation systems that are already in place? Do you have to work in collaboration with unions? How do you do that piece to get everybody, especially teachers, pulling in the same direction?
I think it is real. One of the basic premises of what we do is follows the beliefs that people don't get better because they're monitored. They get better because they're helped.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Write that down, Casey. Write that down. That's a good one. Okay, go ahead.
So, I'm glad you used the word collaboration. That's great. I like it way better than any of those other dumb C words like consensus or compromise or communicate, which I could riff on all day. Well, I don't like those. But collaboration is when you get people in the room who don't think alike, and it's going to be kind of messy. And, people think it's this nice, neat sort of processy thing, and that's not what's going to happen. You got to have divergent thinking that's going to lead to something that no one person could have come up with. So I think it's that combination of when there's a real commitment to helping people get better and to collaboration that's sloppy and messy and unexpected.
Right.
And that's what's going to feed into it, not, this age of accountability, because nobody woke up this morning on this call wanting to be more accountable. I'm pretty sure that already.
Exactly. Yeah, and I call that coercive accountability certainly doesn't work, right? I mean, but...
Oh, there's another C word.
Yeah, I know. I like that one. Yeah.
Add it.
Or compliance. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Krebs.
No, I'm just thinking, so when you go into schools with your scalpel, no, just kidding. No, when you go into schools and you're working with teachers, I'm sure there's some teachers that it's like, within a certain amount of time, you figure out, all right, this is just not going to work, or they're just not going to be here. And so maybe after a year, you transition them over and you bring in somebody else who's willing to do the work. One thing that I've seen, and I guess my question is how you counteract this, is after a certain number of years, a lot of staff do leave, and they put in their 3 years, their 4 years, their 5 years. So you talk about kind of the enduring change and the change in beliefs of staff is a good way to enact meaningful change, but how do you get teachers to stick around for the long run?
Well, I think the first thing is you don't bring them all in from the outside. And I say that as a Teach for America person. So wherever you fall on that, I came in that door. And I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with it, but we have to figure out ways to build local talent. That's number one. And I think number two is this assumption that there's good teachers and bad teachers, and we somehow get our pick of those, or that good teachers will leave. I think those are just based on what past experience is, not what we really ought to be looking for, which is how do you help people grow better. I mean, there's the laggards in there, which is a very small group of people.
The laggards.
And
I
then
love
there's
that word.
the actively evil, the ones who woke up wanting to harm kids. But it's such a small number that's really in that, are there teachers out there who are ineffective? Sure they are. Until we fix some brokenness in how we train teachers to start with, we got to help the ones that we encounter in turnaround situations get better, because most of them went in with the right motivation in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, we used to have a superintendent that always used to say that teachers aren't disposable, and I think that's what I hear you saying, that we need to develop them. That gets back to that line that we love so much. They get better if they're helped, right?
Yeah, I mean, and also like the kids that walk in the door, those are that line about the kids that you get are the best ones the parents have to send.
Yep.
It's the same thing applies for teachers.
Yep. Last question. So the Rensselaerville Institute, I'm curious, I don't know if the guys are, so did you, as much as did you go beyond being a principal? Were you an associate superintendent, or why didn't you think of the superintendent game? What's that all about? Go ahead.
Are you sensing a hedge here?
Yeah, I know. It's the first time you've hedged the whole interview.
Time to be politically correct here. No, I think, I'm not sure I knew it at the time, but I did think about running that route of being superintendent or associate superintendent, and for me, just prefer to sit outside of that, but still be working within the public system. So I didn't want to go out and run charter schools or be a advocacy person. I think I get to work with a lot of superintendents and deputy superintendents, but when you're a turnaround person, you kind of help from the outside and you move on. And I think one of the things the Rensselaerville Institute's figured out that's unusual is how to be a good outsider. Mm-hmm. How to walk into a school in Birmingham or Clarksdale, Mississippi, or middle of nowhere, Maui, and say, hey, I'm from New York, and at the end of the day, I fly back there. So right now, let me help you with this change that you're owning locally. And there's a power to keeping change owned locally, and it is dependent a little on people from the outside behaving like good outsiders.
Right.
Well, Gillian, this has been great. On behalf of the boys, right, guys?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are you a social media person, Gillian? Twitter, anything like that you want to share with the audience?
Yes, I am. You all can find me on Twitter at Gillian_TRI.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to find me.
All right. Well, we're all going to be following you after this interview.
Yep.
Once again, thanks for coming on Ed's Not Dead. We would love to get you back on the show because we feel like, right, Peter, we just scratched the surface with some stories that you have.
We'll go off script the whole time next time.
Especially that Maui trip. Is that what you get to do?
And we'll do a special episode where we can cuss.
Where you can go to Maui. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just get you one of the principals from out there to talk to you.
All right. Well, Gillian Williams, president of the Rensselaerville Institute, thanks again. Hopefully we can get you back on Ed's Not Dead, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Gillian.
Thanks, guys.
We were thrilled to have Gillian Williams on this episode's version of Education Excellence. From the Rensselaerville Institute, through strategic partnerships with districts and schools, the Rensselaerville Institute helps dramatically improve academic achievement for all students. The Institute's research and results-backed approach creates a clear and essential tie between the work in the school and in the surrounding community. And that's how they work. The Rensselaerville Institute builds local capacity in schools and communities so that the people who work and live there continue the positive, durable change long after the partnership is over. During the 2-year partnership, turnaround specialists, who have all turned around at least one school themselves, like Gillian Williams, help leaders shift their behaviors such that teachers get specific instructional support every day and students learn the content and skills each one needs every day. The Rensselaerville Institute equips leaders with site-specific strategies, tactics, and focus to dramatically raise results within 2 years. And they stand behind it with money-back guarantee. A partner principal recently stated that, quote, "Many times we talk about how to turn around a school, but how we do it is something that is completely different. The Rensselaerville Institute has allowed me to look at our efforts and compartmentalize each effort to see if those changes are making a difference with our students. Partner with the Rensselaerville Institute to boost opportunities for our most important asset, our children." You can find the Institute at www.rinstitute.org. All right, welcome back, folks, to Ed's Not Dead. We are in the home stretch of episode 12. Mr. Siddons, if our audience wants back episodes, what do? Where do they go?
They go to Libsyn.
They go to Libsyn.
Libsyn.
And Facebook?
They can go to Facebook.
Okay.
They can go to check out our link on LinkedIn.
Right. And Ed's Not Dead PC, they can get shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. The links are in there.
The links are all there.
Okay.
We tweet them.
All right. Mr. Krabs, get off your phone.
I'm trying
Be
to
in
cheat.
the moment.
I'm trying to cheat for this upcoming segment.
Be in the moment.
Oh, he's cheating.
Look at that.
I know.
Did you see that? Did I cheat?
No, you did not.
Okay, thank you.
You did not.
Guess how much I got?
You got
Nothing.
nothing.
I didn't even click on a link yet.
And the reason why Mr. Krabel's cheating, because it is game show time. All right, today we are going to do the top 10 most controversial education issues in the history of the United States.
I kind of like how we have a news segment every episode.
A new segment?
Yeah, it's like a whole new thing.
Well, we're not doing Dear Betsy this episode, so.
I know, I'm over that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, how do you guys want to do this? Do you want to call stuff out,
Yeah.
or do you just want me to go run through the top 10?
Let's see if we can throw out. And it won't be a competition. Relax there, Baldy.
I know.
Okay.
Mr. he has.
He's
So what-
such anxiety.
You know,
What are you going to do? Are you going to like are you going to detail the event and then we have to name the title?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or are you going to say the title and we have to explain?
No, we're going to throw out
my
broad.
glasses on.
We're going to throw out broad ideas of controversial issues, and he'll tell us yes, and then he'll expand upon them.
No, I don't like that. I think you should describe them and then we'll identify them.
Such a millennial, isn't he?
Okay, here's one issue.
Okay.
Can we start?
Yeah.
No.
Because I have
We're
one.
We're agreeing on that?
Top 10.
That's ridiculous.
Desegregation.
And
What?
top 10.
No Child Left Behind testing for all states.
Testing is in the top 20, but it's not in the top 10.
Wait, so education issues, desegregation is not a top 10
I just
education
told
issue.
you no.
Can
it is
you
not.
can you give the description of the event? And
Okay.
then we'll identify.
That was
like
the only
asked
one I
before.
had, so now I don't like the rules.
Let's change the rules. You're taking too long.
The creation of the Department of Education.
No. All right. Number 10 is online education blended learning. That is number 10. It's very controversial.
Wow.
Okay. Yes,
a barn burner.
It is number 10.
That's a barn burner.
All right, let's go to that was a weak number 10, but it's going to get progressively more controversial.
I would hope so.
I
It's
promise.
getting hot in here.
All right, number 9. Since the beginning of public education in the U.S., primary schools have been
Public. Well,
That's good. That's good. Think about
in one
open
school.
open to all.
Small schools.
now you're getting warmer, Mr. Craig.
Pre-K education.
Now he's just got his desk.
The great equalizer.
Nope.
I don't know what.
Universal pre-K.
Come on. Think about who we educate in public schools.
Everyone.
Yeah, there's only two kinds of kids, though.
Girls and boys. Transgender education.
Ooh, that does
that's a good one.
That does change the argument a little bit. Yes, number 9 is the controversy surrounding single-sex schools and whether they have a place
Man.
in American public education.
I was in a high school class last week. There were 30 boys in it. Not by design. And it was like a little engineering class. It was awesome. I went up to the teacher. I said, "You realize there's 30 boys
What
in
does
there, right?"
that say about females in STEM education?
Well, there's a problem with that. What I'm saying is you totally threw me off my game. That was good. You're right. There is a disparity, and I didn't even realize it.
Look at all the boys. It's wonderful in here.
No, it's more. I was more astounded by the fact they had like 30 ninth grade boys, and
It was not crazy.
it was not crazy.
Because if you had been in the class in 9th grade, it would have been.
It would have been a
awful.
show. Anyway,
all right.
Yeah, you're right. I apologize. That is true. There's a disparity in females actually signing up for that class.
You're starting to sound like Mr. Finn. Number 8. He's cheating.
You got to give us a clue. We have already
Number
proven
8. Okay.
totally inept.
All right.
I'll let you get this one.
While schools and teachers impart knowledge to students in myriad ways, from in-class discussion to hands-on activities and online research, one thing remains a basic means of learning.
Lecture.
Close.
Reading.
Very close.
Textbooks.
There you go.
Bing, bing, bing.
I looked at his computer.
Textbook controversies. Now, you need to stop.
Well, you have your computer like an old man.
Okay. Number 7 has to do with teachers.
Teacher evaluations.
Correct. You cheated again.
I did not.
Yes,
you
did.
moved your computer. I can't see it.
Number 6.
You're not even going to explain something about teacher evaluations?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory.
God.
Number 6. This is near and dear to your heart. You ran about it all the time as it relates to teaching and assessing kids. Come on, Mr. Krabs.
Standardized testing.
Nope.
I mean, he said that was top 20. I don't know.
Give us a little more details.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Traditionally, schools assign blank.
Oh, tracking.
Nope. To students when they complete work.
Oh,
Grades.
Grades.
Standard-based grading.
All right. Sidon's got that
Lack
one.
thereof.
Abandoning letter grades is number 6.
We can only hope.
Number 5. I'm terrible with the clues.
Did you read this?
Like creationism versus evolution.
Climate change.
This in school is a controversy which stems from issues of separation of church and state.
Oh, praying in school.
Prayer in school,
What?
Mr. Krabs. Ding, 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 ding. Number 4. Public Law 94-142, I think 1972.
IDEA.
Special education, educating students with special needs, number 4. What's that public law again? Who remembers that?
94712.
4776
How-
minor.
See, I like facts. Public Law 94-142.
Yeah, where's that getting you?
I think
Where do
actually-
you use that?
It's impressive.
Do you go
It
up
is. Facts are impressive.
Yeah,
you have
go up to
say.
7-Eleven. You'd be like, "Hey, do you know what Public Law 194-86-7 is?"
Number 3 has to do with this one is weak sauce. I'm just going to tell it. Number 3 is gender dress restrictions. That did not really.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't do much for me.
Dress codes generally, maybe, but yeah.
All right.
Can you send me that link so I can put it in the show notes?
Number 2. Alternative ways to educate kids not in public schools.
Ooh, online learning?
Nope.
MOOCs.
Nope. Come on, keep trying.
Say it again. Alternative ways, not
Other kinds of schools that are
vouchers, charter schools.
charter schools. And number 1, Dear Betsy, bears,
Rural
schools.
schools.
Weapons in schools?
Guns
Guns
at
in
schools.
Is that really an issue?
It is. Listen, in Maryland, they just introduced a
Issue-
bill to allow teachers to have guns in
That
schools.
is insane.
Issues of gun ownership and gun control are among the most controversial in the nation. Gun rights advocates emphasize the individual's constitutional right to bear arms. Blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
Now that discussion is moving to schools. Okay, so that's your top 10 controversial education issue list. It was fairly weak.
From Facebook.
It was not from Facebook. I will send you the link to put it in the show notes.
Oh, good.
Yes, please do.
All right. Okay. Updates before
What do you think is, of that list, is the number one issue?
of that list?
Yes.
I would probably say in the last 10 years at least, I would put charters at the top.
Charters, really?
Yeah. I think charters. Yeah, you hate charters. Mr. Crable wants to own a charter network.
I don't know
It's
enough about charters. I just know it's a threat to public
No,
education.
I think charters are just modifying what public education looks like. you know?
Unions hate them.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why people don't like them, but I mean, in terms of impact, everybody can have an opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of that stuff, I think it's people are like, oh, I don't know, and it doesn't really apply to me. But
All right, here are some of the honorable mentions. Homeschooling, bilingual education, school-supplied condoms. Why did I know I was going to get a laugh out of you guys if I said
What do they say about that?
abstinence-only policies?
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, we've pretty much...
No, I want to know more.
Okay, I'll give you...
Two more.
Desegregation. That was in there.
He's shaking his head.
that's the single most important issue of the last 100 years.
Corporal punishment.
Oh.
That's a big one.
It's a thing.
High stakes testing. So none of these made the top 10. Ivy League nude posture photos.
What?
You can look. I don't know what that is.
Okay, that's
a sponsored ad.
That is not. It says image source.
Is number 20 bears?
No.
Okay.
Common Core state standards were in there. Okay. All right.
Who wrote this?
I don't know.
Chester.
Anyway, all right. So it's been a great show, everybody.
Yes.
Right, boys?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Siddons, please tell the audience where they can find us.
You can find us on Ed's Not Dead PC, which is our Twitter account. You can find us, actually, if you Google Ed's Not Dead, we are the first 5 or 6 hits, 5 or 6 links.
Okay.
And I will say, if you go on our Twitter, if you haven't been there in a while, we are starting to put out some new articles, some ideas. So if you're kind of looking for some stuff we've talked about, but a lot of stuff that we haven't. So if you're just kind of interested in some stuff that's out there, just to kind of bone up on your education game and issues in education that were not on that top 10 list, check it out.
It's true.
Yep, and please get on Ed's Not Dead on Facebook and like our page and share it with others and follow us on Twitter.
We're on the YouTube now.
We are on the YouTube, but
That's right.
we did not do video tonight
That's okay.
because our last video looked like we were in the basement of the Silence of the Lambs. So we're gonna try to work on our lighting a little bit, right?
Yes.
Buffalo Bob or Bill is down
We
here.
had the basket.
All right. The man cave is awesome, but it didn't look so good on film. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining Ed's Not Dead. Please spread the word about our show. We love it that you tune in every episode. Make sure you come back for episode 13 in a few weeks. Go Patriots, and we'll talk to you soon.
Go Eagles.